Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Luna. I am the founder of Vegan Bloomers. Connect, inspire, and learn is our mission. And today's star guest, we have the lovely Karl. So, welcome, Karl.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Luna. Nice to meet you finally.
Right back at you. We've actually just been chatting for like
a
few minutes before.
I thought we were already going, so I just went, which is, as you'll come to learn, is what happens. So, I went, and then I think we're about 40 minutes in, and Luna said, right, shall we start then? Here we are. I'm going to have to stop you the whole thing again, now.
That's okay. Like, I don't mind. He's got very interesting things to say. So here's your heads up. This is probably going to be a long one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with where you're based, how old you are, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right, so I'm based in Fleetwood. You see, I don't even let you finish the question, do I? I'm based in Fleetwood in Lancashire, which is about 5 miles down the road from Blackpool. So seaside town, kind of working class fishing town. Traditionally, the place is built on the fish industry, which I used to work in, which I can tell you some things about. And the only other thing Fleetwood's famous for really is Fisherman's Friends, which you might know the little.
Oh, my mum loves those.
There you go. Well, they're from Fleetwood. So and sold all over the world. So that's our big export.
Wow.
Other than fish, which is actually mostly an import nowadays from Scotland. But so based in Fleetwood, and I'm a 58-year-old dad of 3 grown-up kids now. So my eldest daughter is 33.
Ish.
I hope you didn't see this. They know me, they know I don't know age. I think 32, 33. My son is a year younger than that, so 31, 32. And my youngest daughter is 29-ish. So they've all gone and flown the nest now. And I actually became vegan because of my eldest daughter. So, and it's kind of come into its own online, because I get a lot of posts on other vegan groups from young girls and young guys saying, how do I turn my dad vegan, because he's a traditional middle-aged meat. I like my meat and 2 veg, all that kind of thing.
Was that you?
That was me. I was that bloke. So that's really useful for me to be able to say, look, I was the dad. This is what my daughter said to me. And hopefully, if we love our kids, so I'm sure your dad will listen to you and hopefully empathize with what you care about, because that's what I did. So yeah, for me, it was my daughter who came home one day she'd been to uni, and she'd got a job as a teacher in London, and she teaches ethics and philosophy in a big school in London, 2,500 kids. And she was doing a lesson on empathy and compassion, and how in the West we love our dogs and we love our cats, and we know if they're happy or sad, or we'll do anything to protect them, if take them to the vets if they're in pain. Although my dog will try and kill the vets if I take him to the vets, because he really doesn't like the vets. But we understand that about those particular animals. And in other parts of the world, people treat them as meat animals, the same way as we do here. And so I'm kind of jumping ahead of this story, really, because what happened, I do a lot of that. What happened originally was, I've always been the cook in the family, and if the kids came home from uni, I'd do whatever their favourite was. So with my son, it was steak pie. With my youngest daughter, it was this Italian chicken in white wine sauce thing. And my eldest daughter, who turned vegan, it was barbecue ribs. So it shows how far you can change, I guess. And she she was coming home for half term, and I said, oh, okay, great, I'll go down to Gran's Butchers, as we used to call it, because it's the butcher that my gran always went to, and my gran was a great cook, obviously meat all the way, because it's a generation beyond my generation, and well, actually a generation beyond that. And so I said, oh, I'll go down to Gran's Butchers. And normally I'd come out with sacks full of, I'd have 2 sides of ribs, I'd have all sorts, I'd just have body parts in the boot of the car. Never even gave it a thought. And she said, no, Dad, I'm a vegetarian now. So I was like, oh, you and your London ways. I knew it'd change you. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'll go and get the stuff. So she came home and we did a week of vegetarian cooking. And I mostly replaced everything with halloumi. So, because I didn't really know much what I was doing. So I just went for halloumi because it's kind of firm, it's squeaky, salty. Everybody seemed to like it. But we had a conversation. And I said, so what's the idea behind the vegetarian thing then? And she explained that she'd been doing this lesson for the kids. And she'd, as part of the research, she'd seen some footage. And we all know what we've all seen by now, obviously. So I initially, because we quite often have sort of philosophical debates, so yeah, we'd have a laugh as well. We're not Stephen Fry and family, but but over the kitchen table, we quite often have discussions. And so I could hear myself saying things that I now hear people saying on a regular basis, like, they're dead anyway. I can't change anything. They're slaughtered humanely. We have the highest welfare standards. I know, right? So, the good thing is, I've been that guy, as I guess most of us have been that person at some point, which gives us hope for redemption. Like with sounds a bit evangelical, you know what I mean? that we can turn around other people's way of thinking. And so I kind of used all those arguments, but at the same time I realized, whilst using those arguments, I was really just looking for a justification for a decision I never made, because you're just brought up in a set of beliefs that are passed down to you by your parents and by their parents. And my gran was the best person that ever lived, in my opinion, and she was so kind, and she looked after me, and she was kind of my protector in the family, if you like. And I lived with my gran for most of my teenage years, and so I won't hear a word said against her, but obviously she cooked me every day, and she didn't know any better than that. It wasn't, and this debate was never had. So those values were just given to me by a person who I value. And I think that's the barrier that we're trying to get across every time we talk to someone, because we're always talking to someone who's defending a set of values or a moral code that they themselves didn't choose. It was just passed down to them when they were of an age that they didn't have the capacity to make independent decisions, and they've never questioned it since. And when I found myself doing that, and because it's my daughter and I love her and I'll listen to her and she's intelligent, and I'll take her opinion, and we're now at the stage where, you know, they're kind of the parents and I'm the child again. So we're not quite there yet, but I can still do my own toileting at the moment, but you know, we're going nearer there. So I thought, well, yeah, actually, she's got some valid points. So I researched the nutrition, because although I'd done some looking into nutrition over the years, because I've always gone to gyms, I was always into sports, martial arts, mostly combative sports. and you tend to like to, you train to be stronger, so you're more likely to win. And so I'd looked into rudimentary nutrition in that respect, and what you tend to get is protein on the surface level, which is about as far as you get in most gyms in what we call bro science. Protein is meat, fish, dairy. Carbs are bread, pasta, and everything else is vitamins and minerals, which obviously isn't true. But that was as far as I got with it. So I started looking into the nutrition to satisfy myself that we weren't all going to die, and found that we weren't. And I did look at some footage, and what changed it for me was we've all seen slaughterhouse footage, but it was a sow trying to swim out of the skull tank. So as we'll know, skull tanks are a big stainless steel tank that they put pigs through, full of boiling water to take off the coarse hairs, because God forbid you'd get a hair in your pork belly. And this sow had already had a throat cut, and she was swimming out, and you could just see her eyes. And I'd actually I scolded myself that day, just like a tiny little thing on a pan when I was emptying the steam out, and I got my arm above the gap, and I just got a bit of steam on my arm. And obviously you run it under a cold tap, and after a few minutes the pain goes away. But it connected with me with how much pain that animal must have been going through in that moment, having already had a throat slit, and prior to that being in the gas chamber with probably 2,000 others. And I just thought, I don't want any part of that. I can't support that. And if I'm appalled by it, how can I pay that guy's wages? And all that equipment, that stainless steel tank, the winches that they hoist them up with, the knife that they stab them in the throat with, I'm paying for that. If I'm buying that product by putting my order in, I'm using my wages to pay for that equipment in order for them to do that. And I just made that connection. So I decided there and then I wasn't doing it. But of course I went vegetarian, because who knew about dairy?
Yeah.
So, and it's embarrassing, you know, because I'm a middle-aged bloke at this stage. We tend to think we know what's going on in the world. Sorry about that, guys, but
But it's just not spoken about, is it? Until like now.
Exactly. So I thought I knew what was what, but what I actually knew was, as we know, what the industry wanted me to know, which is happy cow, three-legged stool milkmaid. And we all knew it wasn't the three-legged stool and the milkmaid because we've seen the machines, but we assume they're being relieved of all this heavy milk that's weighing them down, and we're almost doing them a favor by doing it. And of course, when I went vegetarian, and it was for ethical reasons, I then looked into, so again, went straight for the halloumi, and that was my main protein source. And I then found out about dairy, and I couldn't believe it. And again, as a middle-aged man, you think, really, is there stuff out there that is so obvious that we just don't know because we just don't think about it? And no one's gonna, in the dairy industry or in the marketing for the dairy industry, is gonna hold their hands up and go, hey guys, do you know we killed 95,000 male calves last year because they can't produce milk? So when I found out what happens, I was equally appalled. In fact, I think the dairy industry is more abusive than the livestock industry, because not only do they kill the animal, they force the animal to keep having babies until they're knackered, and they kill the babies as well, or exploit their reproductive system. And I'm aware that I'm talking to a vegan audience here, so I'm probably
you're actually talking to both.
All right, okay.
Yeah,
So
there are. My mum watches every episode. She's not vegan.
all right,
okay. This is for everybody.
Come on, yeah. So,
just for some clarification, when was it that you went vegetarian and then vegan? How long ago was this?
I don't have a date, but about 6 years ago.
Okay.
I know a lot of people have a date. They have this day of epiphany, and you'll quite often see people on Instagram and stuff going, today is my 5-year vegan anniversary. I didn't write it down or anything, so I really don't know. All I do know is it's about the time that my first dog, Fraggle, died. Because anyone who's got a dog, I never understood it. I didn't have dogs for years, and I never had a dog as a kid. And I remember actually a woman across the road who, her brother came to take one of her dogs to the vets. I just happened to see it when I was out in front, and I remember her brother coming back without the dog, and her opening the door, and just this kind of wailing from her house, which was obviously her because the dog had gone. And at the time, I remember thinking, what's wrong with her? And that sounds really heartless now, but as a non, there are lots of people out there who just don't get it, and they've never had that connection with an animal. And up until that point, that was me. And then we got Fraggle because my daughters had always, Dad, can we have a puppy? 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 And and I worked away. Well, my wife's not great with the health, so we'd always said it's, not really. But we weren't dog people, so it was arguably those things were excuses. And then both girls were coming home from university, so they were both going to be living at home for a while. And my eldest daughter went to Battersea Dogs Home to have a look around, like you do. And she sent us this video clip of this little scruffy, mangy, literally he had no fur on the back because he had mange, dog that looked like nobody loved him, but he just had the most beautiful face, and I just said, we're going to take him, and the whole family just jumped in the car, and I'm on my way to London to pick up a dog, having never had a dog, knowing nothing about dogs, going, what am I doing? And we got to Battersea Dogs Home, and they take you into this room. I don't know if you've ever been. You've probably seen it on Paul already, anyway. But
I haven't actually. I've always been very much, until the day I go to one to actually rescue a dog myself, I won't go in one because I know it's just going to break my heart.
Oh yeah, it does. Well, I've done some work since with dogs homes, and I used to do this thing every year when I worked up in Edinburgh, called In the Dog House, and they got local business people. I was one of them back then, and they lock us in one of the kennels for the day, and all we've got. Oh, speak of the devil. Hello, mister. Come here. Come and say hello to people. Oh. Miss Fraggle. No, sorry.
Baby?
This is Paul. Yay. You okay? We're just having a podcast. Yeah. You got anything you want to say? No? You want to go down there?
Licking his chops.
Off you go.
Bless him. He's lovely.
My current boy. He's trying to get up to see you again. There you go.
Hi, baby. You handsome boy.
So yeah, we went, and they take you into this room, and then they bring the dog in, and and he just ran in and just jumped straight up on my knee, and he was licking my face, and his tail was going crazy, and I just fell in love with him straight away. And we drove him back sat between our girls all the way back, and he was great. And he just loved everyone, and he just, I think there's the danger of, we get accused of anthropomorphism quite a lot, but which I can talk about for a long time if you like. And I think all we're actually trying, when people, I think our detractors talk about anthropomorphism, easy for me to say. I think what we're actually trying to do is not put human traits on whatever animal we're trying to defend. I think if anything, we're just trying to tease out the natural human compassion in the actual human being we're talking to recognize not humanity or even intelligence to any level, just the common ability we all have to suffer, and the common right we all have and desire we all have to stay alive. And so the anthropomorphic argument is, people will say essentially the same, that's not accurate. We shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be describing them as a living, feeling, intelligent being like we are. Whereas actually it's much more accurate than their representation of it, which is to treat a living, feeling, breathing being as an object, which is inanimate, not living, not breathing, and has no feelings. But that's their description of or way of treating the animal. Sorry, another tangent there.
It's all good.
So yeah, we went to Battersea, and Fraggle just loved everyone, and he was the greatest dog ever. And sadly, we only had him 11 months, and he had a seizure in the garden when I was playing with him, and he just died in my wife's arms on the way to the emergency vets.
So sad.
It was the most devastating thing. I talked about my gran before, and I love my gran to bits, and but I was, don't take it the wrong way, gran, but I was more devastated by losing Fraggle than I've ever been in my life. And it took me, I was going to pick a period of time that I would say to get over it. I'm still not over it. He's 6 years old. That's roughly how I know that it's about 6 years. Sometimes when I talk about Fraggle, I have to stop myself. And so because I feel, he was so young, he had a hard start in life, and we wanted to give him the best life. And for 11 months we did. We were out on the beach every day and around the river. And he used to love playing with the hose pipe. And he just loved life. Unfortunately, he didn't get enough of it. And that's really what hurts me, is that I feel like he was robbed of a life he could have had. And he only got 11 months of it. The vet reckoned he was 6 months old when we got him. So he was only 15 months old when he died.
So awful.
And that really hurts me, that I thought, we used to walk around the river. I used to talk to it. We used to talk about being all men together, which sounds crazy, I know, but and that never happened. But now I see these animals that go to slaughter, and pigs are 6 months old when it happens to them, and they don't die in the arms of someone that cared about them. They're in a huge factory, scared to death, And I've seen pigs. I've seen 6-month-old pigs try to jump the barriers that lead to the channels that lead to the kill floor. I've seen them huddle at the back of the crowd of the queue, if you like. I've seen them shut their eyes as if like a toddler would do when they think that if you can't see them, they can't see you. And some of them just lose the use of the legs through fear. They call them downers in the trail. A lot of people will know this. And if they're lucky, they get dragged onto the kill floor by their ears or their tail. And if they're not, they get a gaffer hook wherever it lands. I used to use gaffer hooks on the dock when I worked on the dock. We just use it. It's an iron bar with a hook on the end and a handle on the other end. And we just used them to lift, called kits of fish off trawlers. They use them to get reluctant young animals, the age of puppies, to the part where they get to slit the throat. And the gaffer hook will literally just land wherever it lands in the body, and it's an extra bit of torture for them. So so for me, it was a number of things. It was my daughter, but also it was my dog, who I loved, and that gave me that connection with animals. But I still wouldn't say, I certainly wasn't, and I'm not a great animal person per se. I'm not one that I've been chased through a field by some cows. I didn't sit in the field with my legs crossed and go like this, and they all came and licked my face or anything. I'm like, shit, I'm getting out of here because these things are going to. And I'm like, I'm shouting back, foods. You don't have to worry about me. I'm a vegan. I'm not the one that you need to be chasing here. Don't kill a farmer or something. But yes, I wouldn't even say I was the greatest animal person. But there is, for me, and I can't see how for anyone, in a world where we have the foods of the world on our doorstep, and the nutritional argument was put to bed a long time ago. The World Health Organization says that a vegan diet is healthy for humans at all stages of life, from infancy through pregnancy to old age. So that's the world's, and all the world's leading bodies for nutritionists and dietetics all agree that a vegan diet is nutritionally beneficial for all humans at all stages of life. So that argument's gone. So I can't see how, in a world where we have the foods of the world on our doorstep, we can justify putting 70 billion animals every year through the things that we put them through. And that's where I think things like Anonymous for the Voiceless are really good, because I can describe it, and quite often I do describe it like the Skull Tank thing, and there's lots more of that. But given that I'm talking to vegans, I am aware that a lot of people will be going, come on, Karl, get to a bit that we haven't heard and told everyone else. But hey, Mum, if you're still listening, maybe have a think about that. But
my mum's pescatarian, so I'd be interested to hear actually about your experience as a fisherman.
Okay, so fish. So my first job when I left school was to work on the dock. And well, actually, I had a couple of little crappy jobs before that. But when you left school, so I left school in 1980. I know, right? Prehistory. But great era for music though. And when I left school, working class town, no one went to uni. You did two things. As a lad, you either worked for ICI, big chemicals factory, or you went on the dock. And I went on the dock. And it's the worst job in the world. You get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're freezing your bollocks off all day. You might want to edit that bit.
No, it's all good. I'm all good for swearing.
Excellent. You're literally cold and wet and stinking of fish the whole time. And me and my best mate, we used to go out on a Friday night, and actually the only place you could go, there's one nightclub in Fleetwood. It's not there anymore, but it used to be called Planters. I don't know why Planters. It makes no sense. But we used to go to Planters because the local girls were used to the smell of fish, and you couldn't get it off you. You would have 2 showers and you would still stink of fish, and you'd be scratching scales off your forearms because the scales stick to the hairs on your forearms.
Oh.
Yeah, it's horrible. But my first job was heading cod, and it's literally ripping the heads off fish all day long. So you then progress to skinning and then filleting, and you get a 10 stone. It's called a kit. It's a big barrel of fish. You get a 10 stone kit. You got an empty kit, which is where the heads go, and you've got a filleting bit. And my job was to pull the fish out, thumb up under the gills there, and rip the head backwards. And then the rest of it goes to filleting, the head goes in the bin. And you're just doing that all day. You don't think about it. And I learned some of the, later in life, some of the culture of that kind of environment through doing that. It's, people say, and I've heard this from people who work in, actually a friend worked in a hatchery where they macerated day-old male chicks on the first day of life. So they put them in a mechanical grinder because you've probably heard of chick sexers. You can Google it. It's a dodgy thing to Google, but if you Google chick sexers, it's a job. And they're the people who stand by the conveyor belts in hatcheries where they're looking for the next line of laying hens, because laying hens don't last very long. So they're constantly breeding new chicks. And the chick sexer's job is to pick out the males. And they pick out the males from the conveyor belt and they throw them over the shoulder and they go onto another conveyor belt behind them. So much like I was doing with the cod, although they're still alive at this point. First day of life though. And the conveyor belt carries on and it drops off into a mechanical grinder, and they're ground up alive because they're male. So they're useless to the dairy and to the egg industry because they can't lay eggs, and they don't grow quick enough, much like in the dairy industry, Holsteins and Friesians don't grow quickly enough for it to be worth the farmer feeding them for the meat. So laying hens are the same. They don't grow quickly enough to be sold for chicken. So they just grind them up and they're turned into dog food, meal for farm animals, whatever. Anyway, I digress. So I was ripping the heads off cod. One thing that you learn, this is where the hatchery thing came in, is people will say, you harden to it. And hardening to it is almost like getting a qualification, like passing some kind of exam for the industry where you don't care anymore. And then if you get to level 7, you actually enjoy it. And this is where you see people who do nasty, unnecessary things to lambs in slaughterhouses and in the cage, in the holding pens where they're waiting. They'll do horrible things to them just for a laugh to show the mates how hard they are and how much they don't care. A lot of that went on in the fish industry. And I noticed some things when I was processing fish. And one was, sometimes you'd get a fish and it'd have smaller fish in its mouth. And I thought, this is odd. This fish must have been caught whilst it was feeding. And I never thought anything more of it. And then, although some of the fish, the smaller fish, had the same markings as the bigger fish, so they were eating their own type, which some do, but some don't. And I looked into it later in life and found out that this is actually a defense mechanism. And the bigger fish is the mother. And when they sense danger, they put the babies in the mouth so that they can swim away. And obviously they don't get away. They end up in our nets, and they either get crushed under the weight of their companions in the nets when they're pulled into our atmosphere, or they get drowned in our atmosphere. Either way, none of them make it. But we know from that mothers universally, be it a human, a dog, a cat, a pig, a lamb, or a fish, have the same instinct to protect their babies as we do. So that's fish. And I mean, what's it called? Seaspiracy can probably do a better job than me. Maybe get your mum to watch that. I've not actually seen Seaspiracy because I worked in the industry. I don't feel I need it to tell my story and convert people. And sometimes it's like there are various vegan documentaries that are quite brutal and need to be for people who don't get it, because that's the bit that hopefully switches them onto it. But as a vegan and as an activist, I don't feel I need to put myself through that anymore because I know it.
Yeah.
And I just need to communicate it now.
So how do you, like, knowing that's in your past, how does that make you feel as a vegan now?
Well, I do have a certain amount of guilt, and I also worked in the leather industry.
Oh gosh.
It doesn't get any better, does it?
No.
I'm probably not making a good job of selling myself here. I think what it
No,
shows,
it's good. I think actually it's an important message for people out there that, you know, that aren't on this path yet, to know that, you know, even as vegans, like, there's a reason we got that way, like, and your stories of being so, you know, having to go through such brutal circumstances in your past because of life, it just goes to show, you know, where and why we were not vegan in the first place. And you've come a long way to, you know, to actually associate with the animals and connect.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are the product of their environment. So, you know, when I was brought up on a fairly rough council estate. So we used to fight because that's what you do. We used to, you know, as a young man, it's ludicrous, but as a young man, your only value is how hard you are, which is absolute bullshit, right? But and I'm not the biggest guy, and I'm not the hardest guy, and it's actually why I started doing martial arts, because you need something at that point in your life. And I always regret it now. Here we go again. But another tangent. Me and my wife love Strictly. I don't know how you feel about Strictly, but me and my wife love it. And my gran, God bless her, when I was a young kid, sent me and my brother to ballroom dancing. And she got us the frilly shirt and the massive 1970s bow tie, velvet bow tie, and the shiny shoes and all that. She sent us off to dancing classes. And it didn't go down well with the other lads on the council estate. So I ended up giving up ballroom dancing and taking up martial arts, which gave me more credibility at the time. And I enjoyed it on the whole. But I now look at Strictly and I think, God, that would have been great. I could have spent all that time whirling around a dance floor with some beautiful young women rather than getting my head kicked in 3 times a week. And so, you know, we're a victim of our environment and our choices in life, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it doesn't mean we can't change. And I think the good thing about people who, you know, I've talked to vegan activists who were slaughtermen, and I've talked to vegan activists who were farmers. I've converted a couple of farmers myself, so it's
well
great
done.
when you thank you. Great when you get that connection and you realise that if this guy can change, anybody can change. You know, some of the people that you least expect as well. When I'm doing street activism, I've talked to people like Blackpool Town Centre. You know, all of human life is there. And I've talked to some rough looking blokes who you just think they're just coming over to give you a hard time. And the way, and they're like, depends how far you want to go with the I love swearing thing, this, but they're like, they see the footage or they hear the story and they're like, oh, fuck that, mate, I fucking hate that. Animals, I love animals, mate. That's fucking disgusting. I'm not fucking doing that. I'm gonna fucking stop doing that. And you know, that's their way of communicating. But they got it, and they, in their no nonsense way, just went, I'm not supporting that either.
That's brilliant.
So, you know, so there are all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds. And I think that's what veganism and activism particularly needs, because if we're all out there looking like, I don't know, Earthling Ed, and, you know, great job he's doing and all that, or, you know, if we're all looking like the typical vegan, as people, what people perceive as a vegan. So if we're all 6 stone and we've all got dreadlocks and we all wear tie-dye all the time, right? Then, and to the people who are 6 stone and got dreadlocks and wear tie-dye, brilliant. You're vegan, I love you. But I think they will only connect with people
like them.
Yeah, exactly. People like them. So I was a salesman for 30 years. And the first thing you learn is to establish a rapport with people quickly. And you do that by finding common ground. So for me, I'm a middle-aged grey-haired bloke. So middle-aged grey-haired blokes quite often are the ones who are shouting shit at us from the distance. They're the ones who are going, get a job, mate, or, you know, and I'm like, I've had businesses all my life. I've never not worked. I've had successes and failures, but I've never not worked. And I probably have more in common with the guys who are shouting at us than I do with the people I'm standing with sometimes. But it's good because some of those guys will see me and they'll go, what's that guy doing there? He looks like me. That can't be right. And they'll come over and talk to me, and I'll just say, mate, you know, I'm the same as you. We don't all have to be David Attenborough, although arguably another middle-aged grey haired bloke, also not a vegan, so don't be David.
Well, yeah, I was just about to say he's not even vegan.
Yeah. How ludicrous is that? But,
I know, right?
Yeah, but we don't all have to be. You can still be the bloke you are. You just don't have to support this abuse. And maybe you don't think it's abuse, but let me tell you about it. Let me show you. And this, and if it's an AV cube or something like that, you've got the advantage of them being able to actually see it. If not, you've kind of got to use your powers of description. But once people don't know about the maceration of chicks at a day old in the egg industry. People don't know about the dairy industry. I know that because I didn't know. So once you tell them, and they go, oh, but they give them hormones, don't they? No, they don't give them hormones. They give them babies. That's how they end up having milk. And if the babies get them, where do you think you're going to get it? If the babies have the milk, where's your milk? So where do you think the babies end? And once you take them down that route that they then can't argue with, hopefully they get it. And with you, it might be, you know, they're talking to a young woman who hasn't got blue hair or green hair and isn't wearing tie-dye on that day. And again, I've got activist friends who've got blue hair, green hair, purple hair, no problemo. But, you know, we need all sorts of people from all sorts of walks of life because people respond to people like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, I don't know where I started. I'm sure that wasn't where it was meant to end, but
that's fine. We can move on to like, because I know you've talked about a lot of activism. So tell us the kind of activism that you've been involved in.
So I think the first thing I ever did out in the street, not sure if it's the first one I remember anyway, was, well, actually prior to this, here we go again. So my business was, I ran a company that ran what at the time was the largest employee discount scheme in Scotland. So we provided discount cards for all public sector employees in Scotland. So NHS, the police, fire and rescue, local authorities, Scottish Parliament, all that kind of thing. And they could go into bars and restaurants and hotels and health clubs, show this card, and they got a discount. Lots of big employers have these things. Why am I telling you that? Well, when I went vegan, I had about 200 restaurants on my books who all served meat and dairy, and I was strongly ethically opposed. I'm never middle of the road. I kind of, my kids say I go all the way with whatever I do. So once I'm against it, I'm against it. So I had this ethical dilemma because I was making money out of people selling animal body parts. And as a business that I've built up over 30 years, I couldn't just wave goodbye to that, which has also helped when talking to farmers, because quite often farmers have been in it their whole life and they don't know anything else. And actually, even if they agree with us, they won't agree with us because it means a change that they just can't envisage ever facing, because that's all they've ever known, it's all they've ever done. And I was the same. And what I decided to do, this isn't really activism, but in a way it is I was in a unique position where I had direct contact with people in charge of restaurant chains. We dealt with quite a lot of the big chains that owned brands like Ask Italian, Zizzy, Cafe Rouge, Bella Italia, all quite high street names anyway. And I thought, okay, so most people can't talk to these guys, but I've dealt with them for years. They're kind of mates, really. Whenever I went to a meeting at the restaurant, they'd feed, whenever I went in, they'd always feed me for free. It got embarrassing, but that was my life. What can you do? So I thought, okay, maybe I can talk to them about this. And I was able to use some of that influence to get some of the chains, like Ask Italian and Zizzy, to put a couple of vegan options on. But rather than going down the ethical argument route, I went down the financial argument route, because veganism was growing exponentially, and I kind of put together a pitch, which was that you could grow your audience by, if people are going out with a vegan, so if I'm going out with a dozen friends, they need to accommodate me. So I'm not going to go to some Argentinian steak place, or there's a place called Shabin in Edinburgh, which is still there. Their tagline is "Welcome to Meat Heaven," and so I'm not going to go there, obviously. So if my friends are going out with me, then there's a dozen of us, say, then they're going to have to accommodate me. So guess who chooses which restaurant we're going to? I do. So if you don't have an option for me, it's not going to be your restaurant. And lots of, that's the same for pretty much everyone who has a vegan friend. So because veganism is growing, and at the time it was about, there's a few years ago, about 400% over the last 5 years. It's now about 700%. So veganism is growing. So this is a market. These businesses pay me essentially to market them. So I was able to say to them, look, my job is to get you more business. This is a way I believe I can get you more business. Because there's a section of the audience that at the moment you're not a part of, you're not getting any of this stuff. And not only that, but if my 11 friends are going out with me, you're not even getting the meat eaters anymore. So here's an idea, and obviously I did some cooking anyway. How about we do a vegan version of these 4 dishes? And this is how I do it at home. Your chefs are probably cleverer than me and could probably do a better job of it, but this is what I do. So simple, really simple stuff. And they put a couple of vegan options on. Zizzy asked, yeah, so
we've all got you to thank.
Well, I won't go that far. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, all the vegan options in all the restaurants are down to me, but the Zizzy and Ask, for instance, now have a separate vegan menu with, it's only got about 4 maybe mains, maybe 3 desserts, but they did that, and they had in the first year we monitored it, just up in Edinburgh, they had an 11% increase in sales, and they had a 6% drop in non-vegan sales. So what that's
awesome.
Not only that there was an increase, and 11% is huge in that, so in that situation, but what it also says is some people who would have normally bought a non-vegan option were choosing to try the vegan option, because it was 11% increase, but only a 6% reduction.
This is great. This is. So, here's our proof that people are like, oh, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. So that was not exactly activism, but at the same time,
I would call that activism.
Yeah, I mean, activism takes all sorts of different forms. People,
yeah,
I think, you know, the guys who get the 6-packs out on Instagram and all that stuff, that's activism. If some young guy wants to look like that and attract girls or guys or whatever, then brilliant, that's activism. And there's a guy called Julian Hierro who you know, he gets a lot of young guys following him because he's always got beautiful women following him because he's kind of one of these ripped guys, you know, and the young guys want a bit of that, so that's activism. So yeah, that was kind of activism. What I then started doing was dropping off the meat restaurants and giving free ads to vegan restaurants. So we were gradually turning the tables. The problem I had is I had 200 meat restaurants, and at that time in Edinburgh there were probably 5 vegan restaurants. So you can't exactly replace like for like. And obviously I'm giving up a revenue stream and giving ads away for free at the same time. And we did come across some resistance with that, because the vegan restaurants that I talked to, even as a vegan and an activist, were saying, well, look, the only, because our scheme is based on discounts, and yeah, I can promote them to 312,000 members, but they were saying the people who come to us are vegans, so we weren't really their audience. So I was promoting them to a mainstream audience, albeit for free, but they had to give a discount. So their problem was, the likelihood is that they're going to be giving a discount to people who were coming anyway. So it didn't really work. So we struggled for a while, and then the pandemic hit, and I gave up the business because I was already ethically compromised, and we were struggling because I wasn't taking money from unethical ethical businesses that I saw as unethical. They're unethical businesses. So when the pandemic hit, it kind of did me a favor, because although my business dropped off a cliff overnight, because apart from restaurants, we promoted bars, health clubs, holidays, hotels. So everything that we made money from disappeared. It kind of did me a favor, because
you weren't in that dilemma anymore.
Yeah, much like a farmer, they'll probably never leave it, but if you take it away, they have no choice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, during the pandemic, obviously the government supported the farmers, and as they do day in, day out, lots of farms only exist because of subsidies.
Yeah.
So that is never taken away, which is a real uneven playing field that I'll get onto in a minute. But so other than that, activism wise, first actual official activism I did was, Viva, the charity. They did this ice cream truck that went around the country. They might have come to your place being a season hotel.
No, we don't get any of that, unfortunately.
No, that's a shame.
No, I know. I might have to reach out to them and be like, come to my town.
Yeah, if you tell them you've got a lot of vegans there,
Yeah.
Because they're always looking for, what they do is they go on tour around the country. So they took this vegan ice cream truck and they parked it up on Blackpool Prom, which is of course full of ice cream sellers in the summer. And the idea was to let people try vegan ice cream. So they asked for local vegans to turn up and help and do some support. So me and my wife went down, and Thor, my dog, went down, and they gave everyone these T-shirts with "Dairy is Scary" on, and various things on the back that I actually didn't read at the time, which turned out to bite me in the arse later. But just put the show. And they were all being given these T-shirts and leaflets out. And the plan was some of the activists were going to be around the truck, and they'd talk to people who came to it. And some of us would go on outreach, if you like, and we'd go and bring people to the truck. So anyway, they slapped this placard in my hand. I'm like, oh, brilliant, a placard. So I've got this big lump of wood with a big square placard on the top of it, and it's bright pink, and it said, I can't actually remember what it said, vegan ice cream, so whatever it said, it might have been "Dairy is Scary." So I'm like, brilliant, I'm the guy with the placard. So I thought, how's this going to work? So I quickly came up with kind of a pitch in my head, and I said to my wife, right, we're going to walk down the prom, and we're not going to let anybody walk past us, and we're just going to get people to that truck, and then we'll let the other guys take it from there. So that was our job. And so I just walked up to people, and it was interesting because they have a punk festival in Blackpool as well, and you get lots of old punks turning up who are my age, because that was my era. So it's mostly middle-aged fat guys still wearing bondage pants and leather jackets with hoods on them, and green mohawks made up of like 6 hairs, much like the top of my head nowadays. So there's a lot of that, and they're not always the most open-minded guys. But anyway, so we walked down, and I thought, right, what's my pitch going to be here? So I just walked up to everyone and just said, look, because you can see the look on people's faces, when you walk up to them and you've got a placard in your hand. Nobody wants that. I don't want that. So I'm like, sorry guys, I know you don't want to talk to the guy with the placard. I don't want to be the guy with the placard. So when we get this over with, right, we're giving away ice cream. Oh, all right, that sounds good. Right, so it's vegan ice cream. The only difference is, you see that truck over there, had a big cow painted on it. That truck over there, that's vegan ice cream. Have you ever tried it? No? Right. Well, the only difference is we don't kill any calves. We just kill a coconut. And they're like, what do you mean you don't kill calves? Well, so you probably don't know. And then of course you get into the what happens to male dairy calves and what happens to female calves. So it worked quite well as a pitch, and we got talking to lots of people. And in fact, that was the day that my wife turned vegan, because she was still vegetarian at the time. And oddly enough, it was the pus thing that turned my wife vegan, because they were talking about how much pus is in dairy. So not the argument I would have preferred, but that's fine. Whatever your reason, all good. So we're walking down the prom, and I ended up talking to this family, and they were sat on we have these walled areas. This family was sat on this walled area. I'm just talking to them, and I had this tap on my shoulder, and there's this woman, looks like a bulldog chewing a wasp, and her husband, and she said, "We don't shoot fucking what was it? We don't shoot fucking calves." And I'm like, "Oh, good for you, love. That's a good start. Glad to hear it." She's like, "I'm a dairy farmer." I'm like, that's the context I needed. She didn't like my sarcastic approach, but apparently on the back of my t-shirt it said 95,000 male dairy calves were shot at birth on British farms, which is it's actually from the DEFRA website, that statistic. So there's no disputing it. It's our government's farming website. So we don't shoot fucking calves. We don't shoot calves. I'm giving you that one just in case you don't want to put all the effings in.
Oh no, I will. I'm very I'm a big advocate of keeping everything raw and authentic.
Excellent. Well, that's me. So I said, well, okay. So how do you kill your calves then? And then we take them to market. I'm like, what? To buy them a little pot of jam with gingham on the top of it or something? And or are they the pot of jam? And so I could see they were getting more and more heated. Her husband was sticking his chest out a bit, and he said, "You're just trying to ruin our industry." I said, "Finally, we agree on something." And it ended up in a proper pointing fingers, shouting kind of situation, which the family I was talking to were a bit taken aback by. But they ended up walking in the other direction, and I'm still pointing and shouting, which I don't like to do the angry vegan thing, and that arguably might have perpetuated the angry vegan myth. But
it comes out, doesn't it? It's hard to, you know.
Someone comes shouting in your face, you're kind of limited with what you can do. And they were using obviously ludicrous argument. They realized they had nowhere to go, and I wasn't stopping, so they started walking, but I still wasn't stopping. Because he was talking about fertilizer, and where are you going to get your fertilizer from then? And so I was saying, well, you know, there is humic soil there. Animal agriculture is one of the main causes of soil erosion. So, you know, we don't need shit. We can use organic material. We know that. It's not even the best fertilizer. It's just the one that's most freely available because of your industry. But meanwhile, we're growing millions of tons of monoculture crops in places like Indonesia and Pakistan and the Brazilian rainforest, which they're burning and chopping down, which use awful pesticides, which are actually illegal in most countries, and that's the reason they go to Brazil and they go to Indonesia to do it. And your industry there is buying up swathes of cheap farmland in the poorest countries in the world to do this damage, just to grow food and fly it halfway across the world to cook in these huge factories. There's one off the M6 news. It's like a power station, and it just cooks meal all day long to feed to the animals that you keep in sheds for their entire lives. Not you, them. I'm still talking to the farmers figuratively. Meanwhile, according to UNICEF, 3 million children and 6 million adults literally starve in the poorest countries in the world, where we grow food to feed to the animals you prefer to sell to us. So it was kind of one of them, but so that was my first bit of activism, and also my first proper argument face to face with a couple of farmers. There you go.
Brilliant. I love it. Thanks for sharing. That's been quite insightful.
After that, really, it's just been AV cubes, and so they go on all over. They're all over the place around here. although we haven't done another Blackpool one because we don't have a big activist group here, and we don't have the screens with the footage and all that stuff. I've still got my mask in the drawer. In fact,
just to scare our audience.
there we See, here's the thing. Well, you've got 20 drawers in this thing. There you go. So that's my new AV mask. But,
do you get people that are like really freaked out by those masks?
Yeah. But my wife actually doesn't like me doing AV cubes because she thinks they're too threatening and they could scare kids and stuff. But it's treated as, well, when they pitch it to a council to get permission to do it, it's actually treated as an art installation. So the masks kind of help justify that.
Okay.
Because obviously we all wear black, we all stand in a cube, we all wear the masks. So it's treated as a curiosity, probably by most people. And it's what the masks do, I think, is they make you stand out from a distance. So people who might not otherwise come and talk to you, and still might not come and talk to you, will at least come and have a look. And when they get closer, they see the footage. And once they've seen the footage, they can't unsee the footage. So we, as I'm sure you know, we have outreaches as well. So people take turns in the cube, and then you stick your hand up and somebody takes you out of the cube, somebody else goes in it, and you talk to people for a while. And you get some good conversations out of those because people are confronted probably for the first time with the reality of the slaughter process, and they've never seen it before, usually anyway, and 90% are shocked. And I've seen people cry watching the footage at Cube.
I'm not surprised, yeah.
And those who don't, you can just see the disbelief on their faces. And you know, some people take their kids away because they don't want them to see it. Some people let the kids watch it. But my argument is always, well, if this is so horrific that you're shielding your child's eyes from it, why are you then feeding it to your child? So, you know, if we had screens with people picking apples and digging up cucumbers, I'm not sure you dig up carrots, let's say, you know, no child is going to be traumatized by that. Our food doesn't come from any trauma. So you can show the actual process of our food and everyone's just going to be happy about that. If you have to shield people from it, doesn't that tell you something? Yeah, the cubes are a great way of hitting people with the reality that otherwise you kind of rely on your own descriptive skills to convince people of.
So when you get kids approach you when you're in the cube, like how do you respond to that? Like especially if they were by themselves?
Well, I've never had that situation because Blackpool Town Centre is not the sort of place you'd let a kid be out on their own.
Right.
So normally you talk to the parents first and say.
So would you like turn it around? Like the people in the cube, if they see a child approaching, are they told to like turn it round or something?
I mean, they can walk past. It's the parent's responsibility to let them see it or not let them see it. We're not going to follow them around and kind of, hey, see this?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You just walk past. So, you know, it's usually in a crowded town centre, so it's not like the only thing you can look at. So it's easy for people to avoid it if they want to. But normally, you'll just talk to the parent and say, something like, it's appalling, isn't it? Have you seen this before? Or you might just say, do you know what we're doing here today? And they'll say, well, you're showing that. And yeah, what we're showing is RSPCA approved, Red Tractor approved, high welfare, organic, all the things that you hear, British slaughterhouse standard practice. Because quite often people think this is, people say, oh, that's in Romania, isn't it? Or something like that. No, it's not. It's in Yorkshire. And you can tell people about the RSPCA's guidelines on the slaughter process, and the RSPCA guidelines on the 9,000 cows mothers who give birth at slaughter, and some give birth as their throat is being cut, they give birth. Some are heavily pregnant when they arrive at the slaughterhouse. And the RSPCA guidelines are to leave hanging in the bleed out area until the calf inside them stops moving. And when the calf inside them stops moving, you can cut it out, process as normally. And if the calf comes out, the guidelines are not to let the calf take its first breath. So that's the RSPCA for you.
Yeah, they're awful. I stopped supporting them a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a double-edged thing, the RSPCA. I always supported them because you see the things that they do, again, with dogs and cats, and then you see what they support. And how can the two be in any way the same organisation? And look at your name, guys. Maybe think about changing that if it's not cruelty to animals.
Definitely.
So you get the opportunity to talk to people about things that you don't have to initiate the whole conversation because they've seen something. So you don't have to say, oh, we're against slaughter because of blah, and this is what happens. They can see them, so you can get into where it is and that it's approved. And this is the stuff that all the marketing tells you is humane. Are you seeing anything that you describe as humane today? So, and if not, why would you support that when there are so many other choices? There's more protein in a tin of chickpeas than there is in an entire chicken. So, and you can answer their queries, because sometimes, people say, I know you get a lot of these vegan memes and stuff, which is kind of rolling eyes if another person asks me where I get the protein from thing. But I think as a salesman, one thing that you're taught is that an objection is just a request for reassurance. And the thing that you do with objections is you answer them, put them out of the way, and carry on your journey to the close or to the sale. So that's what we're trying to do. Sometimes we have to, I think, focus on what the goal is here and not just roll your eyes and, say peas, bitch, or whatever you see on these t-shirts, that's not what we're here for. And I think we need to sometimes refocus on what we're here for and answer that question. So say, well, actually, did you know that there's more protein in chickpeas? Lentils have a better amino acid profile, all that kind of thing, and no saturated fat, no trans fats, no cholesterol. There is no cholesterol in plant foods. So if my wife's family actually have what they call, I can't remember the exact name for it now, but it's hereditary high cholesterol. So a dad had high cholesterol, mum had high cholesterol, and they've said it's in the family. And my wife no longer has high cholesterol, although
that's awesome.
Apparently it's in the family. But much like illnesses, they say, or health issues run in families, diets also tend to run in families. So you eat what your mum and dad taught you to eat and what their mum and dad taught them.
Exactly.
So if you live off Fray Bentos pies, you're probably going to have a problem at some point. Yeah, other than that, activism-wise, God, I'm not stopping here, am I? What we tend to do now, so activism has been online for a while, as you know, because we couldn't go out. But lately, we've just kind of reformed a little local group. There's about half a dozen of us. Jan Alston, if you're watching, hi. She's our leader, really. And what we started doing is a bit more of a soft approach, I suppose. And we've taken down just a couple of trestle tables, which kind of shows anybody can do it. You don't need much stuff, really. You don't need the big screens and the masts and all the black stuff. We just take a couple of trestle tables, and people bring leaflets, which you can order for free off a lot of the vegan charities, and they'll just send them to you. And posters, they'll do the same thing, and backdrops, they'll send you for free. And I love baking, so I'll bake some chocolate pecan brownies and some cookies and some cakes and things. And there's another lady who does fudge, and we take down all the different vegan milks. So we'll have a whole row of the different vegan milks, and we just get people to give them an opportunity to try the alternatives. And we take the cookies and the brownies so that they've got something, because if you just drink almond milk, it's probably going to taste a bit bitter compared to dairy if you're not used to it. I don't like almond milk anyway.
No, me neither.
Yeah. So we're not going to win anybody over with that one. But if we take the cookies and the brownies and stuff and the fudge, we give them a bit of that first. Anything tastes great after that. So mildly naughty. So maybe we're tricking them a bit, but again, it's a good conversation starter, and it's quite an easy one. And you get different people. You get a lot of hen nights come to Blackpool.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of women walking around half cut in the middle of the day. So I usually target them and give them brownies and things and cookies, and then they try the milk. But you get families who are on days out as well, and you get bikers who come to Blackpool to ride along the proms. You get all sorts of people. But it's a nice, easy way of just saying, have you tried vegan milks? And a lot of people haven't. And they wouldn't go as far as to buy it because they might not like it.
Yeah.
Well, they might just never make the effort because people are lazy. But if you're there and you go, hey mate, do you want a brownie? It's all free. It's free vegan food. Oh, go on, then I'll have a bit of cake. Do you want to try this milk with it while you're there? So we've got almond. Try them all, see which one you prefer. And they go, oh yeah, that's all right. But isn't it dearer? Well, no, it's 59p from Aldi, or it's 150 if you want the swanky stuff. So no, it's not. But it gives you an opening to have that conversation with someone.
Yeah.
And to answer whatever their questions might be. So yeah, that's the sort of activism that I guess we're doing just now, apart from the usual online stuff.
Sounds brilliant. Right, I think we're going to have a part 2 because yeah, like you've just got so much to say and it's been so interesting. That is yeah, we have to come to an end now because I need to eat some food. But
no worries. Like I said, I rolled out of bed 20 minutes ago, so I haven't eaten yet either.
So
I brought Phyton shaker, which is Phyton is a non-profit, the UK's first non-profit vegan protein brand.
Okay.
Which I'm launching because I'm going to be quick on this one. Don't worry.
No, that's fine.
I should have got Phyton in early. Spending a lot of time in gyms, used whey protein all my life, all that kind of stuff. But I've been thinking about how I can make a difference without sounding too evangelical. And one thing that I thought was, well, all the market leading protein brands are whey. which is obviously dairy derived. So I've formulated and I've used plant-based proteins myself, and I've devised a formulation with some nutritionists, some sports science guys, which is a plant-based protein, and all the profit goes to farm animal sanctuaries and to political lobbying to help change the system so that we can hopefully remove or reduce the subsidies that are propping up the industry at the moment, and a program that we hope to work with PETA and a company called Reformed, where they help farmers transition. So like we were talking about,
That's amazing. Yeah.
Well, it helps them to set up to grow almond milk, not almond, oat milk, or to use their land for something else. And we can help with funding for that. We hope to help with funding for that. So that's what Phyton is. But if you want to do another one at some point, I can talk you off.
Definitely. I definitely am going to arrange that, because there's a lot of questions I still have that I haven't got to ask. So
I think I didn't give you an opening, did I?
Say that again.
I didn't give you an opening, did I?
No, it's fine, because that's why I have questions as a baseline, but it doesn't always stick to it, and that's absolutely fine. Like, it's been really good talking to you. So, and I'm looking forward. You'll be my first part 2. So
Excellent.
That's exciting. So thank you so much for everything. It's been amazing.
It's been brilliant to talk to you. Hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, likewise. So for you watching, thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed it as much as I have, please do press like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our future ones. I've been Luna Bloomer. This is Karl. Thank you so much for watching. Just as a quick one before we go, Karl, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to reach out to you, maybe they have some questions for you or just want to connect, how can they get hold of you?
So my email address is karlfogg, F-O-G-G, Karl with a K, at gmail.com. Or I'm on Facebook. I do all my activism online on Facebook. So it's just Karl Fogg. And I have my my cooking page on Instagram is Karl's Vegan Kitchen.
Awesome.
We also have a page for Phyton, which is Phyton Fit. That's on Instagram as well.
Fabulous. Thank you again so much, and thank you viewers for watching. If you are vegan watching and you would like to be my next star vegan, please do reach out to me, Luna Bloomer on Facebook, or you can email me veganbloomers@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching, and thank you again, Karl, for being here. It's been fantastic.
No worries, Luna.
Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Much love, everyone.